Hey everyone, so today I'm just gonna show what I did, or not today, but like right now, because I'm actually, the last few videos I've recorded them really close together, so I have a few extra videos. I'm only gonna release them per day just to give myself like, not an off day per se, but a day where the content is light, so I could fuse that day's video with the next day's video and still have like another video to go. Or maybe I'll just keep them all as like small videos. I don't know. It's. I just wanted to show you guys what I did since last time. Last time we talked about the logging YAML file, how it's set up, what everything meant, how it's working. I mentioned in that about the .env stuff, so I did actually end up doing it, and it was kind of dumb. Like, I'm just gonna leave it in the code for now, and I'll tell you why it's dumb in a moment. But it was kind of a dumb path for me to go down right now. I could have just let it be. So let me just. There's my terminal. ls code dot, because VS Code is not up right now. I'm gonna maximize this and just gonna start this up and keep it ready. So I'll just show you guys what I did since we last spoke. So from the number, let's get to this one because this one's just easier. What I did here was essentially I added to the root function. I added it with the stock string. The send point is temporarily going to be used for logging testing. That's exactly what it is. I just set everything to like all the levels of logging, including 0 and 100, which are actually not enum typed. So it's not debug info warning error critical, because those are 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 respectively. And so I can just basically, whenever I spin up my app, I make some changes in my logging stuff, I can just hit this endpoint and see how things are working, how exceptions are behaving, etc., etc. Right? It's pretty neat. And on this endpoint, I just added this because the coding exercises I generated asked to generate like a generic health Z checkpoint and add some logging. That was actually their logging thing, which has spun off into this whole other thing. Like, this is kind of all they wanted. But you know, go down some rabbit holes. You know, learn more than you need to learn, because it's always going to pay off. Don't do more than you need to do, but learn more than you need to learn, right? And sometimes that will involve doing more than you need to do, because you'll just like think of something, do something, which I did today, or yesterday, or actually today, because it was today morning. Anyways, you'll do something, and then you'll realize, oh, actually that wasn't an inefficient thing to do, and so that becomes a learning as well, right? But yeah, anyways, so here, the thing, I added a log info, it just returns a generic status okay, and with the status code keyword argument in the app get, in the get decorator, I just gave it status http 200 okay. So status I just imported from FastAPI. I think it's literally, yep, from FastAPI import status right there. And then you just give it the 200. I could have also literally just done something like this, and that would have been fine. Oops. Right, so that would have been fine as well, but I just I prefer the enum because it's more readable for whoever is like checking it out. Like, if someone doesn't know 200, everyone knows, but if it's something that someone doesn't like know what that code is for, using the enum is better, because it's just like, oh, okay, that's what that is, right? And so basically, whenever this path gets successfully executed, I'm gonna be sending out a status 200, which I think is the default anyways. Let's try that. Let's go with created, right? Let's actually just test that out. Oh, it's reloading. Where's yak? I'm gonna go to the healthy endpoint. 201 created. And if I switch back, well, actually I could just do that. And I'm sure I'll send us at 200 now. Boom, it's a 200. Yeah, so I just have healthy and this here. Remember, obviously with FastAPI, interactive documentation is baked in, but these are such like easy endpoints. I just want to like hit them really quickly, just like click, because it's just open instead of like going to the thing, hitting execute and all that. And you can, it's just, I don't know, I've been, for the moment, been using this. I don't know if that will persist, but right now it's just two simple endpoints, just hit, and it's just slightly fewer clicks to do it through yak when it's preloaded rather than like doing on the interactive docs. So that's what's happening over here. That's pretty straightforward. So that's most of the that's some of the changes from last time, and then the rest is over here. So as you may notice, there is a load.env, and I have a .env file here. Now, .env files are supposed to be like not logged because it just could leak potentially important things. So I added it to my git ignore, and I added the logging level 0. We'll get to why that's a problem in a minute. But essentially what then happens is, and then I removed level from my loggers and handlers in the YAML file. And then in the code, I had to do some funkiness because I have to go through each ID in handlers, each handler ID essentially, and each logger ID, and add the level to it manually. Initially I thought about setting a default, and then I'm like, you know what? It's best to just ensure that everyone always is aware of the environment variables that are going in, and be always making sure to set them and think about them, right? So I figured it'd be better, and like whenever I expand on this code, because this code is kind of useless, like what would be better is setting an environment variable to decide between multiple logging configs to use, and have a YAML that has multiple logging configs set up, because this basically sets the level for all handlers and for all levels, right? But I don't necessarily want that. This is why this is like stupid bullshit code that I just kind of wrote, because this is, for now I'm just leaving it because I wrote it. So I'm like, okay, I'm just gonna set everything to the same logging level, and then I'll test more nuanced logging level stuff later. Or maybe I'll just use like something like or maybe I'll just go back to just reading the file directly into dict config. In fact, you know what? I'm just gonna go ahead and add that as a comment here so that it is easy for me to switch between the two. I'm gonna do that. Why is this? Oh, it's over indented, that's why. Okay, yeah, and I'm going to just comment that out, no problem. Just so that I can switch between this and that later on, so that's going to be helpful. Oh, I didn't commit this. Weird. Oh yeah, I know why I didn't commit it. Because I committed a version of this. I was like just setting up all the weird edge cases and stuff, and like this code just kind of blew out. Took me, and the annoying thing is I knew that like I'm just gonna have to ditch this pretty soon. Like this code will last me a week before I'm like, this is stupid garbage and needs to be tossed. But I still did it. And I just loaded .env. You can just name it as a .env file. I also went into an existential crisis as to whether python.env should be a dev dependency or a regular dependency. And I ended up going like, because I kept asking, I kept asking on ChatGPT and Googling it, and I was a bit tired and didn't think to like look past that. Um, and it just kept suggesting like, oh yeah, no, that should be totally a dev dependency, like if you do os.getEnv in any like uh, sufficiently enabled environment, um, you can do like you can just have that environment, like the Docker environment, have the variables, and those variables can be read directly as os.getEnv. It's like, okay, that makes sense, but then but then how do I have like load.env in my file, in my code, and deploy that and just have that be switched off in a particular environment? I could do that with an environment variable. Fuck me. Oh, I just thought about that. I could just put load.env, load, like if os dot get env, env, um, env file, colon, then load. Yeah, I could totally do that. Because getEnv will just return none if it's not set. And if you just set this one variable, and you have to have a process for that. Anyways, I'm gonna comment this out and keep that idea for later as well, because that's just making it irritating for development. Can I pass an environment variable to UV? Pass environment variable to UV. I can just hit export. Pass individual environment variable to UV. Okay. Okay, so this is going to be a very easy add, and it'll just become like part of my terminal command that I just need to hit up more often. Speaking of which, I'm just going to give you guys a small sneak peek of my Trello. Let's close the done. Don't pay attention to apply rash free. Who's the task I just thought of? Oh yeah. Building and UV commands to useful terminal commands. So I have a note that I recently started. It's pretty simple actually. It's in Apple Notes. Useful terminal commands, currently just one. So a couple of times I've had to like record usually I try to one take this, but I did two different videos a couple of times and then fuse them together. And so I just like found this command and I just like wrote it out with its like explanation of how it works. And so I should add some of my UV stuff there as well. And the beauty of this method is that you can basically set env file to anything, like any text at all. Like if it is set, it will be done. Doesn't matter unless it's set in a way that it gets interpreted as something else. But actually, no, when you get env, it always gets interpreted as a string, so never mind. And then you have to do all the typecasting yourself. So yeah. Okay, so if os.getEnv file, this is also something I'm going to keep for later. But essentially what I did was I read this .env file by doing load.env. I added .env file to my git ignore, and I updated my logging config, removing the loggers. And then here, based on the environment variable logging level, which is a integer essentially. One thing I haven't done is verifying that the integer is positive, because it should be, but I don't know if it'll work. Sorry, I not that I don't know if it'll work. I don't know if I'm going to be using this code for very long, so I didn't want to bother adding like an additional check that, oh, the integer should be 0 or greater than. I'm just like, why even bother? This whole thing is going away. So I'm just like, I didn't bother with that. But basically I read this logging level, I set it using this little script where essentially I just go for key and keys. Keys is a tuple of string because I'm just passing 2 right now. Because once again, I didn't want to make this like a list of strings arbitrarily long, though that would be the more generic one, because this code's just going. So for key and keys, ID and config key ID level equals LL. Basically for each key and keys, I pass in handler and loggers for handlers, for ID in handlers. So if you go back to the YAML file, you'll see terminal, and then as I add other handlers, like I might call one mail and have it be like an SMTP handler, whatever. And I may use the same format, I may use a different format, that's irrelevant, right? Basically go through each of the handler IDs, right? And similarly with loggers, go through all the logger IDs and just set level to LL, right? And this would essentially replace it even if it was already set. So I didn't need to actually remove it from logging config YAML, but it made it less confusing for me, but I'll have to remember to add it back in later on. So, yeah, and I set it to sysexit1 over here on this error if I don't actually get the logging level. And yeah, so now I'm going to show you guys a problem that I faced when I went to bed, and I'll figured it out also right now, so I'll just tell you what that's about. So essentially, if you set logging level to 0, right, I'm just setting this to 0, and I'm gonna hit my root endpoint, which you remember would be showing all of them, but you can see that warning error critical get printed, but not even debug, not debug or even info, sorry, or the 0 one, even though I set the level to 0. So that was like, what? And what I realized was essentially, if you want the logging level to be 0 or up, your previous logger needs to have your parent logger needs to have a, or you yourself need to use 1 or more, or if it's 0, so for the logger, not for the handler. So there's 2 different things. For the handler, when you set it to 0, it means I should just print all logs. For a logger, if you say 0, 0 is equivalent to not set. So it'll keep going up and up the hierarchy till it finds the logger at the very top of its hierarchy. and get that logger's level, essentially. So if you want the level of your logs to actually print and not set or higher, it has to be the root logger. So I'm gonna actually test that out if that's possible. Root colon, well, propagate doesn't need to be set. We can say level colon 0, right? So I'm not sure if this will work. Actually, I'm just gonna go not set. Just gonna say that, and then let's see if all of our logs work. Let's do that. I'll have a few additional prints. I have a few additional prints I need to fix, but let's do this. And now you see everything is coming. Oh wait, I think the first one is actually set to 2 because I was testing this out yesterday. So let me actually fix that. Let's set the logging level to actually 0, because I set it to 1 because I was trying to test and see like where's the major malfunction by just playing with the numbers, and then I looked it up and I understood. I was like, oh, okay, I get it. So yeah, it's weird. Basically, if logger level is set to not set, you're gonna want to do that. So if you want to have, I think, overall flexibility to let your logging level grow, I think having this in your YAML file is, I think, important. Yeah, I mean, I guess you could set root with its own handlers and stuff like that. It can't propagate. Should probably give it the same terminal handler, because in case there is something that on the root level needs to be logged, would that get logged? I don't know. Actually, let's just test that out. Because if I do a hard crash, no, that doesn't have a. Let's see if this works. Oh. Yeah, see, this is the double logging thing I was saying. Remember? I mentioned this in the previous episode. I was like trying to see what's going on here, and it's like doubled the log because I added a specific handler on root. So either I need to like disable all the handlers and just have everything set on root. I might actually do that, because everything in every logger is a property of root. So I might set everything up on root and just leave it at that. I'm curious about the root logging config Python. Like, what is the config for root logging? I'm curious. No, I don't want to know how to do it. I want to know what it is. Okay, let's just go here. Maybe this will tell us. Okay. So actually, root is actually, so it's weird. I set it on root inside loggers, but root is also its own high level, its own hierarchy. Let's do shift tab here and see changes modified, logging config YAML. I am actually liking this. Man, I might set logging level to 0 always. This is nice. Why is this not starting up? Application started, application startup complete. Okay, and then let me hit the endpoint. So logging level is 0. When logging level is 0, it won't work. But if I set it to 1, it'll work. Let me try. Oh yeah, okay. Oh, just do it one more time. Just do 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, okay, it's filling. It is coming through. Yeah, and level 1. Yeah. See, it shows up over here. So 0 is actually, even if you set it on the logger, 0 doesn't exist. So your actual lower bound is 1. Let's actually set that. Let's set it to 1 and see if the root logger just like defies logic and it has to be greater than instead of greater than equal to. I'm just gonna do that and hammer the endpoint. Okay, it's connecting. Application startup complete, level 1. Yeah, so if I set it to 1, it works, but oops. I'm just gonna keep not set. So anyways, we did some live stuff, figured things out. I talked about how some code is shitty, talked about how I can improve some code, because this is actually a smart idea. And that's the end of the video. Bye. Okay, I need to go.